Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 12th of March, comes to you from London. And the headlines this morning were oil is above $100. Well, actually, that headline was pretty short-lived. We're looking here at the 1-minute chart of Brent crude. Of course, I put out a morning call report every day for our energy clients, and we can see here that it's been falling away. That's not to say that it's bearish. It's just that those headlines will often be sensationalize what's really happening. And the current position on crude oil, as we say in our report, is we are range bound. And that is the key point. And we go through gas, power, all the energy markets in Europe. So I start by just saying, when you hear those headlines on crude oil, look at the chart. The chart is truth. Price is truth. So we start by looking at the dollar, and we're seeing that's just holding up, a few currencies falling away, and Bitcoin. I mean, realistically, its downside targets were met here, then we just recovered into the cloud. We went a little bit higher, and that would have been tempting to think that Bitcoin was turning a corner, and then that set us up for the next downside target. So don't be surprised to see the same thing. 80,000, what was previously support, now cloud resistance. 80,000 is what Bitcoin has to do to turn medium-term bearish. Now, my big concern about markets at the moment is we're still we're holding up really incredibly well, given all of the that we're seeing in the Middle East. But we are seeing all the markets just struggling to make new highs, and that's the key thing. Japan was probably one standout that was looking better, but that's fallen away again with a downside target. We're still above the cloud, but pretty much all the markets. The Aussie market was down 1.3%. All the markets are really just struggling with the news flow. And more than that, the area that I'm most worried is in the bond markets. And if you've watched my in the updater site up under resources, you can see the LSEG masterclasses. This time horizon one is really, really important, but also I do run through cycles, and I talk about. So these are all free resources on the updater website. I run these for London Stock Exchange. I'm doing one next week. They only allow professional investors in on those webinars, but the good news is I do upload those recordings on the updater website. So no matter who you are, you can register and watch them here. So that's really quite key. Oh, by the way, Charts Today, you'll get the email, and you're normally watching at chartstoday.com. Great if you can just hit the YouTube button here, watch it on YouTube, like it, and subscribe. That just helps me keep doing it. So, the key thing is the more people watching this, the more I can carry on doing it. So the key thing is just I talk about bond markets in that, especially that one before Christmas in December, and that's where my concern is at the moment. Japan was the real worry, and that's been really quite key. We're looking at the US 10-year. That 430 level is really critical. These two that are red are actually the bond prices. These are the actual bond yields. UK gilt, the 10-year, has activated an upside target 17% higher. That's 5.6%. If we went to those levels, UK borrowing would become a real issue. And you can see we've risen more than 50 basis points in the last, this month. And so breaking that 480 level is really critical for the UK. And it's not just limited to the UK. We're seeing that German market is activating upside targets as well. And this is today. If this move holds today, then we are seeing upside targets in Europe. Lots of resistance to break here, but multiple upside targets is a worry. Italy has been a real standout. We've seen a big move here, and again, waiting to see if we activate the upside target. And the Aussie 10-year yield gave an upside target in January. and we've got another one that's about to activate. So really quite key there. Coming back to the excuse me, coming back to products, we're seeing cocoa that's continuing its downward move. The targets are there. Coffee down 2.8%. Seeing a lot of soft commodities falling away. So everyone's talking about commodity prices. Well, it is mostly limited to energy at the moment. Sugar, this 14 level is really a critical level, and that's what we're teetering around at the moment. Gold, a lot of gold watchers this year waiting to see if we activate this new upside target. If we look at the 60-minute chart, we can see here we didn't quite get to the target, but we are just holding above the cloud. We need to break 52.50 really for that move to occur. Now looking at the Dow, you can see there was a lot of red on the screen yesterday, just an indication that we are seeing markets just starting to be punished a little bit for this ongoing situation in the Middle East. Looking at the Nasdaq, we did see some recovery. Micron, quite interestingly, we're seeing that on the 60-minute, but on the daily chart, lower high, not quite a lower low, but we have activated a downside target. Maybe we're going into a range. If we look at Tesla, another popular one that was in the leaders yesterday, up 2%, but we've crossed the cloud with downside targets, and that 382 level is going to be pretty key for Tesla. Looking at Alphabet, this was one of the better looking Mag 7 stocks, having most stocks not making new highs since October. Alphabet had stormed away, but now even it has succumbed to a downside target. Not quite through the cloud yet. And if we look at the 60-minute, maybe we're just starting to see the signs of a recovery there. So that's where the shorter term charts are quite valuable. And do remember that and equally the longer term, that's where that longer term target was given. You'll notice that I'm constantly moving from the short term to the medium term to the long term. That's what's your time horizon. The very first LSEG one I did in April last year, that's really worth watching to just understand the importance of time horizon. So coming back to where we are on the UK market, looking at the list this morning, I just literally rank by performance, and we can see straight away BAE Systems continues to be one with upside target there, 26% higher. Remembering that thrust, the pullback, that's what's produced that as a point and figure target. So that's really quite key. The long term, got some very big two buying thrusts producing two targets. That's what we call a cluster. That's what you want to be looking for in your charts. Of course, you can scan for these. Look on YouTube for my video on scanning, and you can see, and that's the great thing, if you've subscribed, you will see other videos that I do. So here on the short term, so that's really quite key, isn't it? It's bullish, short term, medium term, and long term with upside targets on all three. That's the sort of stock you want to be looking for. We just looking at others that are rising today doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good chart. So here's an example of the short-term chart for Legal & General. So you really do need to watch those. Oil majors in the UK, which have been a big driver of the FTSE because they're big weighting in the FTSE index. BP's met its target. What's the short term tell us? Well, there's a little bit more to play for. That's why you want to look at those different targets. What does the long term tell us? Not so strong, and it shows us where there's resistance. So just does allow you to just temper your view by looking at the different time horizons, and I really do advocate that very, very strongly. Looking at GSK, another strong pharmaceutical performer, upside targets met. That's on the medium term daily. Still got a very big upside target potentially and a breakout, multi-year breakout. But at the moment, we can see on the short term we've got some work to do to get back into that trend. That's it for today. Do look at those resources on the website. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Bye for now.